Okay, life advice, rr@gmail.com. A couple really good ones here. Let's see. This one's awful, just because I think it's such a terrible idea, but that's why we're going to read it. 510-155. Traveled for the last 14 months and thought working out would be easier. It wasn't. I'll never throw weights around like some dudes, but even now, if we go camping, a bear wouldn't get me first. Quick, former track guy. Also math team, but sneaky athletic.
Okay.
All right. Well,
I like all those attributes, to be honest with you.
Against a bear, quick, understanding angles, geometry.
Yeah.
Like is
tree guy.
Is that bear going to cut me off there? Nope. I've already mapped it all out in my head. All right. As I've said, I've been traveling for the last 14 months. What wasn't mentioned was 13.5 of those months were with my girlfriend. The spare 2 weeks is when I had an emergency surgery in a foreign country with heavy COVID restrictions. So she couldn't visit. And the other week was when her dad got hit by a car. He's okay. All right. A lot going on there. Wow. But it's kind of his fault because he, and I quote, thought the driver would recognize who he was.
What?
I don't know if that means. Is the dad famous?
He's so famous he stops traffic.
Yeah.
Is anybody that famous? I don't, maybe.
My father-in-law, again, this is the girlfriend's dad, so we don't know if it's going to go down there. I'd be like, my girlfriend's dad is a real head turner.
I wonder how, what is his level? Who is he? Was he like a local politician? Like, do you know who I am?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's the ultimate do you know who I am move, to just step out into traffic expecting people to go, oh, I do know who that is. Stop the car. Even though the light is green. I don't really get this. Or maybe
it's not how stop signs, maybe it's traffic works, but
the dad is like, I don't know. All right. Anyway, let's keep it moving. So he walked out in traffic as a car was coming, albeit on a crosswalk. Anyway, before we traveled together, we spent 2 years of quarantine next to each other without any separation. I could tell you every meal she's had for 3 of the 6.5 years we've been dating. Things are going great. Our families even had Christmas together. My dad saved her family home from being burnt to the ground. What? What did the girlfriend's hot dad think of your dad doing that?
Yeah. Who's better now? I don't know.
I don't really.
How does one save a house from burning down too? Like, is he a firefighter?
Yeah, or is he just like
concerned citizen?
Does the email just exaggerate stuff? Like there was a curtain that was near some lights, and he's like, we should move those lights. Or
yeah, somebody left the burner on. He's like, hey, shut that off. All right, yeah.
I smell a gas leak.
This guy's a hero.
I don't know. Well, let's keep going with it with the email. I mean, maybe just this family has some weird shit happen to it, on both sides. So he goes, I don't think many things are wrong. However, she always insists on recording our arguments. Oh my God.
This is
I finally agreed to let her record or hit record on our most recent argument. My dilemma. Now what do I do? Should I transcribe 2 sessions of 45-minute discussions, 1.5 hours total? Thanks, math guy. We were able to figure that out. It's a
bad scene.
He starts throwing in some math stats that this is the number 1 math team in the nation, 13 of the last 14 years. If we needed to look that up.
I don't. Thanks, though.
I don't know. I'm so confused on this math thing. Like, he added 45 minutes and then he started talking about his math resume. I imagine some of the other math is more challenging than that, but
then simple addition. Yeah.
So he's asking, should he transcribe the 2 sessions, 45 minutes each, and present her with the full version for review, whether I'd be right or wrong? I don't see a world in which any recording goes down a happy path, but I also feel obligated to see the matter through. I'm a neuroscientist and my whole career is based on interpreting evidence. Would carefully study a transcript would a careful study of a transcript end this desire to record the proceedings? As someone who records many conversations, I figure you would know best. I mean, look, dude, I'm taping a podcast. I'm not fucking sitting there with my girlfriend taping our arguments and standing in front of the phone. I would think that's also super inconvenient because you have to stand or sit near the phone and then you're like across from a table looking at each other, making sure the phone is picking it all up. Okay, I mean, just look, the headline is going to be pretty simple for me. I think this is a terrible, terrible idea. Not only that, because the only way I could see this working is if there's such a disconnect every time that you have these arguments, but it sounds like you don't have that many arguments and everything is great, but she wants to do this. I don't know where she learned this. I'm sure there's somebody, maybe a professional person listening to this right now going, it actually can be a really great exercise because it removes you from the emotions of being in the conversation at that time. And then you're listening here. Like I would say, okay, if you felt like this is the last resort here and you're trying some way to salvage a relationship, I'd be like, all right, fine, cool, figure it out. But I hate it so much. And the fact that if you do ever break up and you sound like a psychopath in these things, she could send it to a friend or something like that. So I don't know. I honestly think too many people record each other now in some fucked up ways. And the best thing would be to not be doing that more often. So I would only say it's okay if you feel like it's the only thing you can do. But if this is her move and she wants to do it all the time, that's a real problem. Do you really fight enough? Is there such a disconnect between the two of you that you need these things to be? Because you basically have described it. You know, her dad's hot. He's okay. Your dad's saving Christmas. You said, for the most part, it seems like you've gotten along. So if it's just the occasional argument and this is her move, that's actually more frustrating. And I hate it. So yeah, I wouldn't be doing this a ton.
This is one of the most random, just like throwing things out there emails that I think we've ever gotten of just like different stories that have nothing to do with the actual question in hand. I think anytime you're keeping score in arguments in a relationship, it's just never a good idea. Never. Because like I just think about the arguments I get in with my wife, and we don't really even argue a ton, but they're usually like when one of us is in a bad mood and one of you is definitely irrational and wrong, but you just don't want to admit you're wrong. And then after a while, you kind of come around. If you're in a healthy, good relationship, you realize that you were an asshole and you don't even have to apologize, but you just kind of know that like you were in the wrong and you probably took that too far. So if you're playing that stuff back to your significant other, it's basically you getting more agitated or repeating whatever thing you were arguing about in the first place. And it's just not healthy. So I don't know why. If she insists on you doing, I definitely don't think you should like take a time stamp on this and transcribe it and like read it back to her and analyze it unless it's really something very serious that you guys are discussing. If they're just like petty arguments, then just let it go. But if she like insists on recording this stuff, I hate to say it, man, that's like a major red flag to me. I don't think that's like the sign of a very healthy relationship. Now, if she's recording them and she's not actually using them for anything, and I would hope she's not like sending them to other people like without, your permission. That would be, because otherwise, why is she recording them if it's not just gonna be to play back to you? I guess if she's not using them at all, it's fine. But if she wants to record them and like keep score on who's right and who's wrong and have like a whiteboard with like tally markers on it, I think that's a recipe for disaster, in my opinion.
Yeah, she taping every time you guys have a disagreement, and then what's the exercise that you're supposed to go back? I mean, I think I lost some of it there when he was talking about then transcribing it. And so then he's going to hand it to her and then have her read it.
Definitely don't do that. Definitely don't do that.
Well, no, but I felt like he was saying he was going to do that to prove to her how pointless this was and have her read it back. So I don't know. That sounds like an awful time. And I would break up if that's what I had to deal with. Sorry. But again, I think we all...
You just end it? You would just say, hey? There wouldn't even be like a negotiation.
If in the future it was like, hey, we're going to have to always tape these recordings. Like we're going to have to tape our arguments. I'd be like, well, you can yell at yourself in your phone because I'm out of here. Tell your dad to check the crossing.
Your dad's not even that famous.
Yeah, Dad's not nearly as hot as he thinks he is. All right. Photos with athletes. Hey, Ryan, 29, 5'9", 165. I don't work out. I do play golf when I can. Today, my wife and I went to Bengals training camp. I guess we're okay to share all this. All right. My father-in-law is a writer for the team, was able to hook us up with friends and families passes, allowing us a spot in the end zone right by the field and a few other amenities that made the day great. Surrounded by the players and coaches' families who felt like we were a bit out of place, but didn't mind the shade and refreshments. After practice ended, the players came over to greet their families, do interviews, and sign autographs. My wife is used to being around the players on the team because of her dad. But I'm still new to this. We got married last October at the stadium.
Oh, wow.
They got married at Paul Brown, so they really like
Paul Brown.
They really like
how romantic.
Yeah. I waited till after all the kids got their autographs and approached Jamar Chase for a photo. He graciously took one with me and carried on with his day. My wife thought this was embarrassing because I was an adult and this was her father's coworker. Was I wrong to approach him and ask for a photo? As an adult, asking players for autographs and photos against some code. Would love to hear your thought. Love the show. Okay, can we just stop real quick on something that was said there? The father-in-law who writes and covers the team is not a coworker of an all-pro receiver.
Yep, he is adjacent to his career.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if Ja'Marr Chase has been named all-pro. I just think he's that good. And he will be at some point.
Yeah, it's an anticipatory comment, if anything.
Right. I mean, look, even if he was a slot guy, colleague seems like a stretch.
Second team.
Seems like a stretch.
Second team all-pro.
Here's what I'm going to take your side. I'm going to take your side on this. Because the person who's totally, desensitized to it, the father, the girlfriend, now your wife, they're actually like, I've been, 20 years in this. Whatever my instincts would be, I actually don't think they're the right ones. It might be cooler that I don't care, but it's completely being dismissive of so many people, whether it's listening to this podcast or the hours you spend watching the NFL or all the NBA stuff that you love, that you still are enamored with these people that are so special at what it is that they do. Like, this is a big part of your life. And to let the other kids, and you're saying, you had all of them go first or whatever, maybe you're trying to sell your side of the argument even more, but you asking for a quick selfie with a guy who's used to this, I don't think you're really wrong here. Now, I don't know if there's some sort of stipulation that was made that's, hey, if you're doing the friends and family thing, like, you're not supposed to go in there. Even though that's where your access was. I mean, maybe there's some sort of rule that you could have broken. Maybe it's some sort of understanding. But I think for them to be like dismissive of what you wanted in that moment is not very realistic. And that most people want a picture with the famous person. Most people want to go ahead and get the autograph, even if they're trying to pretend that they're above it, being like, hey, normally I wouldn't ask, or I wouldn't normally do this. But deep down, it's actually that they do want something. And people kind of lost their minds about like the photo thing, where it's just like, hey, I'm going to just take a photo and you're going to, like, you have to do that. It doesn't seem like that's what you're doing at all. He even included the photo. I mean, Ja'Marr Chase is like standing behind him and he takes a quick shot with the phone. So unless you were completely not allowed to do that, all right, but there's nothing you've told us that would say that, then I think you're actually in the right here, and they need to remind themselves that even though their access to it is desensitized them to it, they are over it. And yes, I get it. Like, the cool thing is to do is to not actually want any of these things. That doesn't really apply to most people. Most people are going to want what you did. And if it was pretty harmless, which it appears to be from this picture, and they're just more annoyed with you than some rule that you broke, I would not spend too much time feeling guilty about this.
Yeah, I think you're, with all the respect, your wife and your husband and your father-in-law are being pretty lame here. The whole the training camp, like, is constantly just people taking pictures after practice. Like, that happens all the time with fans. I've seen that a million times. And I think the players, if you ask them and they say, yeah, sure, like, be polite about it, and that's fine. So as you said, unless there's like a rule about it, I think they're being incredibly, incredibly lame here. And it reminds me, like, remember back in the ESPN days when, like, we'd have like car wash people come in, and there was like a rule that if you were working, you shouldn't really be asking for pictures of, like, have Jake Gyllenhaal come through because he's promoting some new movie. Like, don't ask Jake Gyllenhaal for a picture if you're working on the show. That rule got broken a million times. And you know what? Nobody really, it didn't really matter. It didn't really, I mean, it did get annoying at times when, like, people from, like, people would be working like nights and they come in during the day just to, like, meet Rick Ross and take a picture with him. You're like, all right, like, maybe you're doing a little bit too much here, guy. You don't even really work on the show. But I don't know. People get excited. They want to. Everybody gets excited about a new, like, Facebook profile picture. I'm sure this guy's pumped to, like, have the selfie with Ja'Marr Chase, and he's getting a bunch of likes and he feels good about himself. I think his wife needs to lighten up a little bit. This is what training camp is for. It's not that big of a deal. As long as you're not being a dick about it and, like, asking every player for 1 million autographs or different things. And to suggest that you're part of the team, or that you are in some way, like, affiliated with the team, so you shouldn't be doing this. That's not what the situation is. So I think you should feel fine about it. I wouldn't argue with your wife about it, but I would rest easy knowing you're in the right here.
Yeah. And if Ja'Marr Chase is upset, you can have the dad, who's his coworker, smooth it over for you. But again, if the dad is writing for the team site, then maybe it's looked at a little bit differently. But yeah, whatever. The coworker thing kind of made me laugh.
I don't think anybody's going to care. I don't think
the rule at ESPN.
Ja'Marr Chase doesn't know who your dad is or that your father-in-law is. He doesn't know any of this stuff. You're completely clean here.
Yeah, I would say the ESPN one was always hysterical because they'd be like, "Hey, just make sure you know, don't ask." What they didn't want people doing was like asking for autographs or pictures like in the hallway. And then remember we had that kid who just started lurking for a little while. Remember that stretch of that dude? And he just was coming by all the time, getting his pictures taken. Then he started posting them on Instagram. Who was that guy? That was hilarious. And then we started looking through and we're like, who is this guy? And that's actually what's kind of funny about life too, is that he was so sure of himself that nobody ever knew like what the hell was going on. We're like, why is this guy coming over and doing this every time we have a celebrity? And there was something about him where it was like a little off, I think. And
he doesn't even go here.
What?
I that was a Mean Girls reference. Don't worry about it.
That's what I thought. I didn't know Mean Girls. I knew it was sort of a reference.
No, but there was some random, like to have the confidence to not really know anybody in the department, but still hang around and like get a picture with, I don't know, like Eli Manning, some random person's coming times.
Through. Like, and then I think he got a picture with Van Pelt once, and we were like, "What is going on here?"
That's right.
And then
that's right.
We were like, somebody goes, "Hey, we found his Instagram," and then we started realizing, like, dude, he's just posting. Like, he's an intern at ESPN, and he's turning this into his own little like posting of whatever. He was taking pictures of everybody and then posting them. And he clearly had no concern for it. But the only time that ever bothered me would be like the management. You get again, we knew we were going to have our pictures taken with him because we were on the fucking show, right? It was our show. It was understood when you get done with
we did it for social media.
Right. You get done with Jake Gyllenhaal, he's going to take a picture with you because that's the whole point. Were you with me? Was it Michelle was with us in Miami when they had me do?
We were both there.
Was it Vince
for the All-Star game? Yeah, we were both there. There's Michelle and I.
Okay. Yeah, like when we went up to Embiid to ask him for a picture just because we wanted to see what it looked like. And I kind of was like, I don't really, don't ask him or whatever. And then he was actually really cool about it. And then we figured, all right, whatever, for the social page. And it's me next to Embiid at Marlins Park.
Yeah, you're not the guy who's going to be like anywhere asking people for pictures unless it's in a work setting like that. Like it's a formula, it's like a formulaic, like, hey, here's Joel Embiid. He's doing a car wash. Take a picture with Ryan. Like you wouldn't tap on the shoulder at a Marlins game and be like, hey, Embiid, and like hold up the selfie.
I probably wouldn't do that.
You just don't have that gene. Yeah, you don't have that in your body. I don't really either. I kind of find that really cringe. Gyllenhaal, I was very excited about, and I remember. Didn't you do like the fight picture? Because he was, I think he was promoting that movie Southpaw, right? So I think you both did like the arm, like boxer thing, and it was actually pretty funny. But he was a good dude.
He was really, really good in those. And because I try not to pretend that like, hey, that guy was really nice to me for 7 minutes while I helped promote his movie. He's an awesome dude. Because it's
everything about him.
Because you have to be, as I've said it a million times, you have to be an absolute like Hall of Fame asshole to screw up those 7 minutes.
Some people did. I mean, there were a few people. I won't name names.
It's a single digit number.
One wide receiver.
Right. But of all the people that we've ever sat down with, think about it, hundreds. It's not more than 10 where you got done with those 7 minutes going, that guy sucks. He's the worst. I can only really think of like 3 ever. And that's why after everybody gets done with all the other people, it's the EJ Manuel thing. Like EJ Manuel was so good in those 7 or 8 minutes that people were like, he's going to be an awesome quarterback. I'm like, I might get a summer place with him, but I don't know if he's going to be any good as a quarterback or not. And he wasn't any good as a quarterback, but he ended up back at ESPN. But the picture thing that was like the managers would always be big on it. Remember, like, don't do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. And then as soon as Liam Neeson shows up, 7 managers are back there waiting to get their picture taken with him. And that's where you're like, as a manager, like it's a really bad look because it's like you're telling everyone we can't do the thing that you are absolutely going to do. And every time that would happen and then they would leave the studio, we'd just be like, what the fuck? Like, seriously?
Yeah. Haven't seen you in months, but congrats. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah. And then did Liam Neeson, and did it end up, we could do a whole car wash episode where we just talk about like different times.
I don't remember Liam Neeson. I bring up Gyllenhaal because at the time I was working on Mike and Mike.
And you look like Gyllenhaal a little bit.
and I had a bun,
little Gyllenhaal face,
and he had just cut his bun for the movie. So, this is why Gyllenhaal is like my all-time favorite. Sorry to the Taylor Swift, crew, who I know is like, he's very much in the crosshairs of that situation. I still like Taylor Swift, but I am team Gyllenhaal here. Sorry. He comes in, Mike and Mike, it's like 7 a.m. It's his first hit of the car wash, right? And when like people come in on those car washes and they roll like 10 deep, they've got a publicist, they've got like multiple PR people, they've got buddies. I remember like Joakim Noah came in with like a crew and some guy shook up like a protein shake and the top wasn't on it and it just exploded all in the studio. And it was a disaster. Gyllenhaal came in with no one. It was him and the ESPN talent booker. And I immediately was like, that's fucking awesome, because that means this guy is super down to earth. So he gets there. I'm producing Mike and Mike that day. I don't even know if those guys were in or whatever. And he's like 15 minutes early. So we literally just shot the shit for like 15 minutes. And he could not have been nicer. Awesome dude. I was talking about my bun. I was like, was it hard to cut it off? He's like, yeah, man, it sucked. Like, I was so bummed. I really liked the bun, but I had to cut it. I had to get the buzz cut for the movie. Cause remember he had he basically buzzed his head and he was like kind of like a meathead crazy guy. So we talked about that for a while. That was my number one. Like, this guy is actually, I was debating like, hey, you're going to be around? Cause like, I'll be in West Hartford later. Like, you want to hit a Brico, grab a drink or something? I didn't quite go that far and I would never do that. But our vibes were so good on that I even stopped by the studio later to see you guys interview Jake. That's where I saw the picture of you guys, back to back doing the boxing thing. But Gyllenhaal was the number one nicest guy that I've ever met in any car wash.
Sandler gets the number one ranking of all car wash people ever from the talent department. Like, you could ask 3 different people that handled, like, the talent department is kind of a vague term for a department at ESPN, because sometimes the talent department's, doing our contracts. They're telling us what we should be looking for. Sometimes they're taking you off of shows, but they'd also have the people and be like, hey, Adam Sandler's coming by. He's promoting Grown-Ups. And then the talent department would have one of their employees assigned to that person for the entire day. And, we both, Steve and I, have been there for such a long time, but you'd just be like, what is, who's the coolest? Sandler. It was always Sandler. It was unbelievable. And Cuba Gooding Jr., I think, said, rock out with your cock out on Sports Center. That shut his day down pretty quick.
Yeah, get him a car service home. He's got to get.
I think Liam Neeson swore too.
I don't remember Liam Neeson. I remember I was so upset because Rick Ross came in on the day that I was off, and I literally debated coming in because he's my favorite rapper. I love Rick Ross. And I ended up not doing that. And I think he told Michelle, Michelle had like a necklace on, and she was like, hey, nice chain. And Michelle's never forgotten that to this day.
He was cool, producer. But he kind of was like, he knew he was Rick Ross and he was just whatever. And I think Cannell asked him about like, what do we have to do to be your friend? Like, it was pretty funny, but it's not as cringy as that sounds, because as I just said it, I cringed a little bit on the inside, but it was just, so the whole thing was absurd. And so we started just talking, like, well, what does it take to get, I think Cannell's like, what does it take to get in your crew or something? And Rick was like, he goes, man, it's just about money, like making money and opportunities and partnerships. So if you don't waste my time, and your time is money and my time is money, then we can do whatever. And we were like, so what does that mean? I like pitch you on a fucking, have you ever been at a picnic? And so, all right, I guess that's enough memory lane car wash stuff there.
T.I. real quick, also awesome.
T.I.
I don't know if it's a rapper thing. No. He was great. Super cool. I told him, I was like, dude, I listened to that album. I listened to King in high school. Like, I think I broke the CD in my car, and he was like, that's awesome, man. Like, I loved it. He like genuinely was like happy to hear that. Yeah, we were talking watches. He was cool. T.I. was actually really cool to us. All right, there you go. Today's Life Advice presented by Modelo. Modelo knows it doesn't matter where you come from. It matters what you're made of. And when you need a little advice, it never hurts to have someone in your corner cheering you on. Modelo came from small beginnings and never gave up. That's what makes it a lion. I'm going to pick it up there. That's what makes a lion. Modelo, brewed for those with a fighting spirit. Drink responsibly. Beer imported by Crown Imports, Chicago, Illinois.